Welcome back, everyone, to Movies and TVs on the Ball, and it's the end of the year. Hurrah! And I've been so busy with work, I haven't had time to watch everything that came out between in the year 2024. I've seen a couple films here and there, but I haven't watched a lot. And I apologize. My New Year's resolution is to watch at least 30 films of 2025, but I was thinking to myself, what movies would be, what kind of films should I review today? And I thought, well, since it is kind of getting to the end of the year, I have decided to take a look at 5 decades of films from 1974 to 2024 or 2014. And the first video will be on the 1974 films. I want to know your thoughts on them, so please leave comments on below. But let's get started. I was going to start off with the 1974 film Blazing Saddles, which I guess in some ways, is very, looking back at it now in the context of today, it's very, but I feel like it's very comedic. I love the, Black Bart and the, Gene Wilder, who sadly passed away this past year, and it was a great comedy, and it had and I think Mel Brooks really brought something to that film, and it was one of those films that I watched and I was like going, this is comedic gold. So I looked at Blazing Saddles as one of the films that is a classic, and maybe down the road I'll take a look at Blazing Saddles and do more of a review of it. But Blazing Saddles is a complete classic. I think if you take off a little bit of the of the times of it being comedy, but it's still a classic nonetheless. Other films that came out in 1974 was Death Wish, which had Charles Bronson in it. I've seen the first one, or like the fourth one, just kind of on TV, and it's pretty good. But these films came out when I was not even born yet, and I kind of lynched on to more of videos 2 and 3 when we get into the 80s and 90s and 2000s, 2014, and this year. But Death Wish, I do remember that film. I've seen like the first one, and it is it does paint the painting of, or it does sort of take the steps that John Wick took, 50 years later or 40 years later. But I loved that movie. I mean, I haven't seen that movie, but that's just another film that's kind of in my peripheral. Then you had The Godfather Part 2, which is one of the best. It's kind of like the Terminator 2 of the Godfather series. And it's a really great film because I like how it talks about it goes back and forth between the startup of Marlon Brando's character from the first one, and how he becomes the mafioso, and talks about sort of Sonny, or not Sonny, Michael, kind of I like how it was back and forth, back and forth. It's a strong, great film. I love it. It's a great film. and I think it's one of the best sequels that that came out. And then you had films that I've kind of, and these are more films I've heard of than I've actually seen. I'd love to know your thoughts on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's just celebrated its 50 years. I felt like that was a strong, great film as well. It's, the horror. I think I've seen the trailer in a grindhouse, like a trailer octalypse where I went to a cinema over in Nashville, and they showed these trailers, and it's kind of the grunge that you see with like Robert Rodriguez now, and in some ways Quentin Tarantino. Death Race, or not Death Race. Death Race did a great one, but um, I was just kind of asking about what your thoughts on films from the '74. There was The Longest Yard, which um, had Burt Reynolds, and they did a remake of it in 2006 with Adam Sandler and Burt Reynolds coming back. So I'm not really sure if it was yet Earthquake, which was sort of the um, Earthquake, which was sort of the I haven't seen it, but from what I've heard from a lot of critics, was sort of the kind of disaster film that 20 years later Roland Emmerich would do with like Independence Day and Day After Tomorrow. Then you had Young Frankenstein, which is one of the best comedies I've seen. It's a great comedy horror film. It was Mel Brooks. It had Gene Wilder as Professor Frankenstein, and Peter Boyle, who you all know from Peter Boyle from Everybody Loves Raymond, who played the Frankenstein monster, and it is such a classic, and it really pokes fun at it. I've got it on DVD. I'll love to kind of take a look at it one day and kind of give you more of my thoughts on it, but I was just sort of wanting to let you guys ask you guys what's your thoughts on the best films from 1974. Let me know in the comments below, and as always, like and subscribe. Next up after this will be a video on 1984, which I am still a little bit more familiar with because I was born in '88. So I'll have a little bit more, get more detail and do a little bit more videos on it. But let me know your thoughts on 1974 films. And as always, like and subscribe. Peace.